If this code generates any error, that is handled by the except block. If the error occurs, what's going to happen? Sometime the program may function properly. Logical errors are those errors that cannot caught during the compilation time. So what is error? Error is nothing but the exception. Hello to all, a warm welcome to my new session on Python Basic. I'm your Revati ma'am, faculty from the Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. So dear student, in my last session, I started with looping statement. So what is looping? Looping is nothing but the repetition. When I want to perform same task again and again, what I'm going to do? I'm going to place that task or statement within the loop. In that, I have discussed while loop and for loop. And in my today's session, I'm going to discuss exception handling. So dear student, what is exception and how we can able to handle exception? So what is exception? Exception is nothing but the error. So, how we are going to handle the error and what mechanism we have in our Python. So, exception is nothing but the error. When error occurs, when we are not going to write the statement properly, when we are not going to write the condition properly. Okay, in that time, exception may arise. Now, exception is nothing but the errors. So, errors are the problem in the program due to which the program will stop the execution. So, what is error? Error is nothing but the exception. If is there any error in the program, then what is the drawback of that program? It won't function properly. It won't execute properly. And on the other hand, exceptions are raised when some internal events occur. So it is not only the problem in the program, at the same time, exception may occurs when some internal event occurs, which changes the normal flow of the execution. So if the error occurs, what's going to happen? Sometime the program may function properly or it is going to enter into the abnormal flow. Okay. So if I consider exception, there are two types of exception, that is syntax error and logical error. What is syntax error? So dear student, if I'm writing program, then I want to follow the syntax of the program. If I make any mistake in the syntax, then I'm going to get the error. Okay, then logical error. So what is logical error? Error in the logic. For example, if I divide any number by 0, so this is the example for logical error. So all the logical errors are known as exception, and this is runtime exception. To handle the runtime exception, I'm going to have the keywords like try, expect, and finally. Now, if I consider error, the syntax error. So syntax in the sense what? If I want to write any program, I want to follow the proper syntax. Okay, and if I miss the syntax, see here, I have written number equal to 100 and if number greater than 50. According to the Python programming language, I want to place the colon here. Okay, see what I did, I missed colon, and this kind of errors are known as syntax error. Even if I write single quote here and if I close double quote, This is also lead to syntax error. So error with respect to the program syntax. Now, see here, I'm going to have the logical error. Logical errors are known as exception, and it's also known as runtime error. Why it is known as runtime error? During the execution of the program, if the interpreter throws an error, then that is known as logical error. Logical errors are those errors that cannot caught during the compilation time. So syntax errors are caught during the compilation, but logical errors are not rectified during the compile time, and it is identified during the execution of the program. So when in the runtime an error that occurs after passing the test, passing the syntax test is called exception. So during the runtime, during the execution of the program, if the program generates any error, that is known as exception, or it is known as logical error. The simple example, that is divide any number by 0, that throws the error, that is zero division error exception. Now, let me to consider this example. This is Python code. See, what is the marks? Marks is 10,000. Now, I'm trying to divide 10,000 by 0. Now, this code rises error. So, it's going to rise an exception. Okay. Now, to handle and to manage the exception, Python supports try block. Okay, fine. When an error and exception are raised, then we have to handle. If any error generated, that must be handled effectively. For that, in Python, we have try, we have except, and finally. Now, let's see what is the use of try, expect, and finally. So try block tells you to test the block of the code for error. So think that I have written the code, and where I'm going to place the code? Within the try block. Now try tells the programmer to test a block of the code for error. Then what about except? See here, block tells you to handle the error. If try block generates any error, that must be handled by the except block. The else block tells you to execute the code when there is no error. So try block is used to identify the error, and except block tells you to handle the error. In the else block, programmer can able to execute the program if there is no error. So the finally block tells you execute code regardless of the result of the try and except block. So without bothering about try and except block, finally block is responsible for executing the code. Now, when an error occurs, exception as we call it, Python will normally stops and generates an error. So what is the meaning? While executing the program, for example, if I divide 100 by 0, so what the interpreter is going to do? Interpreter is going to throw the error and it's going to stop the execution. Now see here, I have simple code how to handle the error. So try colon, I'm going to print x. It generates an error. What kind of error? See, x is not yet initialized and defined. So this block is going to generate the error. Now, who is going to handle the error? That is nothing but except block. So here an exception occurred. So what kind of exception occurred? Because here X is not defined. It is not defined, but I'm trying to use X in my program. So it generates an error. See here, I have another program. Okay, try print X. Okay, even I can have the error name. So except error name and print. Variable X is not defined except something else went wrong. So what went wrong here? I didn't define X, but I'm using the X. So it leads an runtime error. And how I can able to use else? See here, I can use try with except. Now I can able to use else. So here I'm going to write the code what I want to execute. If this code generates any error, that is handled by the except block. Now, if the job of the else part is to execute the code. So here I have written hello. So what I'm going to do? I'm printing the hello. If instead of hello, if I define X, what's going to happen? So error, something went wrong. Along with that, okay, it's going to print nothing went wrong. Okay, so here if I consider first scenario, print hello. So there is no error. So what's the output? Nothing went wrong. Instead of hello, if I write X, then what is the output? Something went wrong. Okay, fine. Now, let me to discuss how I can able to use finally. So, try, except, and finally. So, finally block, if specified, will be executed regardlessly if the try block raises an error or not. See here, I have returned X. Okay, it is something went wrong. Even though the finally block raises an error, that is the try except is finalized. Okay, this is the way I can able to use finally. So dear student, the another very important concept here is function. So what is function? We studied function in C program. So what is function? Functions are nothing but the group of statement used to perform specific task. For example, think that I want to add two number. Okay, I have set of statement, and for this statement, if I write the function, then it is known as user defined function, and it's going to perform specific task. What kind of specific task? Finding the sum of the number. So a function is a block of code which only runs when it is called. So function is going to run when I call the function. So unless if I didn't call the function, it won't work. So manually user want to call the function. And you can able to pass the data. So while calling the function, user can able to pass the data and known as parameters. At the same time, a function may return the value. It is left to the programmer that how programmer is going to write the code. Okay, so a function can return data as a result. Okay, fine. Now, how I can able to create a function in Python? For that reason, I'm going to have the keyword def, D-E-F. And this is user defined function name, and I'm writing the colon. Okay, and I'm writing hello from a function. So how I'm writing the function? For that, I'm going to use def. Now, how I'm going to call the function? This is my function prototype. Yes or no? And see here, I am having the function call. So this is function prototype with the body. So it is function definition and this is function call. And what is the output? Hello from a function. Okay. To call a function, use the function name and followed by the parenthesis. So this is a function without parameter. In the sense what? I'm not passing the parameter. And see here, this is the program, okay, with parameters or arguments. While calling the function, user can able to pass the argument. See here, okay, this is my function call. This is my function call. This is my function definition. So what is my function name? My function. Okay, and which is my parameter? F name. That's nothing but the first name. So now I'm printing the F name with the mail extension. Okay, so @gmail.com. And while calling the function, I'm passing the first name. So first time I'm passing ABC, second time DEF, and third time XYZ. So this is the output of this program. Now, dear student, passing a list as an argument. Dear student, while calling function, user can able to pass list as an argument. See here, def function definition, it's a keyword. My function, see, what is the parameter? Food. See, I'm passing list. So it is a collection of element. Okay, now I want to print the food one by one. So I'm using for loop. So X in food. Okay, now fruits equal to, I'm passing, okay, apple, banana, cherry, and it is nothing but the list as an argument. Okay, and see my function and I'm passing the list. So I can able to use list as my argument. Now return value. Function can return a value. Okay, it is left to the user. How the user is going to write the program. Based on that, function may return a value or may not be. Okay, so this is the example code how the function is going to return a value. Over. So def my function and it is returning the value 5 into x. See here, while printing itself, I'm calling the function. So what is my function name? My function, and I'm passing the argument. So first time 5 into 3, it is 15. Second time 5 into 5, it is 25. Third time 45. This is the output of this program. Anyway, dear student, in my today's session, I started with what is exception, how to handle the exception, and what are the keys I want to use while handling exception. Along with that, I have covered function, how to call a function, how to write function, and which keyword I want to use while defining the function. Anyway, dear student, in my next session, I'm going to deal with the new unit, that is string. Anyway, dear student, let's meet in the next session, that is string. Until that, keep watching and keep learning. Thank you.